we know that athletic performance, if done too much, can accelerate your biological age. Now, I've worked very, very hard over the years to try to reverse it. And what I try to do now is educate athletes on how they can reverse their biological age and in turn learn from biohacking to increase their performance as well. What can biohackers learn from bodybuilders? That we know from working out, we can increase our bone density, which is very, very important, especially as we get a little bit older. If you look at a lot of the blue zones, for instance, in Okinawa, they do not have seats. They sit down and stand up from the floor on average 30 to 50 times a day. And these people are centenarians. So we know that it can increase their bone density. So if you work out with resistance weights, you're going to increase your bone density, which is very, very important. You know, you hear of people when they're in their 70s, 80s, 90s, they fall over, they break a hip, 6 months later, they pass away. So we can actually prevent that from happening just by working out several times a week. Doesn't have to be hard, doesn't have to be extremely heavy, but you have to do it. It is very, very strongly suggested. And of course, we have a lot of amazing exhibitors here today, but we cannot take all these shiny objects on board without putting in the hard work first. If you want the icing on the cake, you got to put the cake mixture together. And then metabolic activity. By having more muscle density, we're going to be more metabolically active. So in doing so, when you do consume food, your calories, you're going to be able to assimilate those foods much easier and have better blood sugar stability in doing so. So again, another benefit from what we can actually learn from bodybuilding or weight training. And when I say bodybuilding, I don't mean just being on stage, oiled up, in posing trunks. I mean actually just building your body. It builds your confidence. It builds your energy. It boosts who you are as a human. And then the blood sugar stability, obviously, it is very important that we do fast and increase autophagy. I was just speaking to Sim Land about this earlier, and I do it a couple of times a week on my non-training days. Very, very important. But having little meals and often throughout the day as well can improve your blood sugar stability as opposed to having a big meal all the time, several times a day, as the average person does. And then squat and grip strength. We know that squat and grip strength is associated with longevity as well. As I mentioned, the people in Okinawa sitting on the floor, that's basically squatting. Like I wasn't able to get an Uber to get to the gym today, so I did a workout in my hotel room. That is great for my longevity as well. The grip strength, if you're picking up stuff or picking up weights, that is directly associated with a correlation of longevity as well. And then what can bodybuilders learn from biohacking? Well, I'm wearing the blue light blocking glasses at the moment. Helps with cortisol management. A lot of people are going into the gyms or, we're exposed to a lot of artificial light and it can increase our cortisol. That can prevent us from accelerating muscle growth. So, making sure that you're trying to stay away from your devices as much as possible. Making sure that you are blocking artificial light, like the upstairs in my bedroom of the house and the bathroom does look like a brothel here in a red light district because I have the red light. So I'm not flickering through my retina and creating cortisol, which could obviously have a negative effect on building muscle tissue. And then a lot of us are dopamine dominant, doing whatever we can with meditation, earthing, grounding, staying present. So if you look at a lot of athletes, they're shoveling meals while they're scrolling, while they're talking, whatever. We need to be in a rest and digest state. So whilst we're eating the meal, that we're taking our time in doing so, putting a fork down between bites, being grateful, using our senses of smell, sight, enjoying the texture, the smell, the color of the food. And that allows us to digest the food that much easier. And I always tell my clients, it doesn't matter what you eat. To a certain extent, I know that you're eating healthy, but what you absorb is very, very important. And then earthing, grounding. The world that we live in today is very, very different to what we lived in many, many years ago. Well, not that many in my lifetime. And now we're being penetrated with non-native EMFs, Wi-Fi, satellite signals all the time. So it's very, very important that we earth ourselves. Like I'm wearing earthing trainers as we speak, especially when I'm on flights. So if we're being penetrated all the time as well, I don't know if you've seen scans of blood before and after exposure to Wi-Fi, then obviously that slows down our healing process. What do athletes do? They break down muscle tissue. So we need to heal quickly to optimize our performance the next day. So I always tell my clients, and I'm sure you've, I don't know, used like an EMF reader where you're holding a phone and holding the reader here. The reader goes through the roof, but then as soon as you earth yourself, the reading goes down because now it's running through you as opposed to penetrating into you. And then testosterone optimization, ice baths. We know that cold thermogenesis, again, blocking blue light, is going to help with testosterone optimization as well as like using red light panels or exposing ourselves to the red frequencies of the sun in the morning, especially if you're doing it naked. Maybe, I wouldn't suggest that you always do it outside, but if you have red light panels, doing it naked to help optimize your testosterone levels, and sauna as well can help with that. And of course, as we get older, our testosterone levels do decline, and we want to offset those correlation of aging. So getting that red light is very, very important if we want to optimize our testosterone. And then again, bodybuilders or athletes like Dom and I have been eating 6 meals a day here, and we're constantly eating all the time. And a lot of the time we're having exposure to plastics. You get plastics. The food is in plastic packaging when you're traveling, or bodybuilders are eating out of Tupperware containers. You have plastics. Bodybuilders or athletes, again, are using microwaves all the time, which destroys the molecular structure of the food. So we have to take that into correlation because athletes are generally eating twice the amount as the average human does. So we can potentially create twice the amount of damage than the average human does. Even though we may look fit, may have muscles, pecs, however, the internal organs are not as healthy due to this often exposure or overexposure. And then controlled fasting, as I mentioned, because we're eating so much food, it's very important that we take the stress from our digestive system. We're constantly signaling mTOR all the time, not allowing AMPK to signal and create autophagy to clean ourselves out. So that's why I do suggest, a lot of people find it very, very difficult to wrap their head around this, but I ask them to at least fast on their non-training days. Like Simland was up here earlier, looks phenomenal, and he only eats twice a day. He was eating just once a day, but now he eats twice when he's trying to put on muscle. So it can be done. It can be done. But at the very least, try fasting on your non-training days. And when I say extended, it only needs to be 18 hours, maybe a little bit shorter for some females, but about 18 hours, you can do that. And some people that are even a little bit more paranoid have some essential amino acids during that fast, not obviously a lot of calories. And then gut health. Because we're eating so much food, and a lot of that food does have glyphosate, antibiotics, in America, the majority of antibiotics are consumed by humans, not from prescription drugs. It's from the food and the meats that they eat, which is insane. And obviously that can cause various gut issues, dysbiosis, leaky gut. So we have to be very, very careful by eating humane-raised, wild-caught, organic, grass-fed whenever possible because of the overconsumption that we are experiencing. Now, antioxidants, we all know antioxidants have benefits. We know that. We go through a lot of ROS or reactive oxygen species, oxidization. So we need antioxidants to help prevent a lot of the oxidative stress. And be it in the environment that we live in today, EMFs, plastics, artificial light, pollutants, we are constantly hit with free radicals. So antioxidants are very, very beneficial, okay? Now, there are some great antioxidants that I like to take. I like to take hydrogen-rich water. Doesn't matter when I take it because I know that isn't going to blunt the hormetic stress that we need from working out or exercising. So hydrogen-rich water, C60, ESC60, which is a great carbon. It's about 42 to 47 times more powerful than vitamin C. And I've mentioned a couple of others here. Quercetin and acetylcysteine are very, very good antioxidants to take all the time, especially when we're traveling. Like on the flight here, I did take some hydrogen. I did my Vital C. I'd have some glutathione, NAD, because I know I'm going through a lot of stress. And around my workouts, it's not going to blunt the hormetic response, especially like the hydrogen and the C60. However, there are some antioxidants that can blunt that hormetic response. Vitamin C and vitamin E in high levels. So around your workouts, I would not suggest that you take them if your goal is to have that hormetic response from working out. We need trauma. And if we immediately decrease that trauma, much like extended periods in an ice bath post-workout, a couple of minutes is absolutely fine. When it's extended, of course, that can have negative effects. And it all depends on the exercise that you're doing. Endurance work, not so much. More strength building, yes, it does. So then I do suggest that things like vitamin C, your vitamin E, that you do stay away from, or you take it in the evening before your next day's workouts, or if you're working out in the morning, or try to part it away from your workouts as much as possible. However, if the person that you're dealing with, or if this is you, you've had a lot of oxidative stress, maybe you're getting a little bit older, you've had some addiction, maybe drinking or something like that, it doesn't matter that much because you've got so much oxidative stress that you're dealing with. The high levels of your vitamin C or your vitamin E or other antioxidants doesn't matter that much. So I wouldn't stress about it. And that's the thing in our world today. We look at every single detail, and sometimes the stress of that alone can cause anxiety, overstress, and more reactive oxygen species. So just go with the flow. The one thing that I do notice with athletic performance, biohacking, and triathletes is that they look at every single detail. And it's too much. It's overwhelming. Like we have to quantify everything. We have to use every reader, every tracker to quantify everything. And sometimes I have clients not to track their sleep. I'm like, take a break. Don't track it for the next couple of weeks. And their sleep then improves because they're getting anxious knowing that they have to send me their sleep scores the next day, and that prevents them from sleeping. So sometimes you just need to bring things back, think more about our ancestral wisdom, how we were put here in the first place. Of course, we have a different environment, but we need to control it from the head down as opposed to everything else that is infiltrating us, such as our readers and whatnot. So here, okay, biological age reduction. So before I got into the biohacking world in 2014 through accident because I had mold toxicity, I thought I was healthy. I was consuming the right foods at the right time, but I didn't realize the sources of those foods or what I was doing, being very dopamine dominant, was actually accelerating my biological age. And my biological age was older than my chronological age. And that's when I really went down the biohacking rabbit hole to help reverse my biological age. And I've been able to thankfully do it every year since then. But I haven't decreased my athletic performance. In this time, I did four Ironman triathlons, I did ultra marathons, I did Spartan races, and of course, didn't take any breaks away from the gym because that's mental therapy for me. It isn't all about aesthetics, it's about therapy. It makes me feel good. So now, the importance of prioritizing your recovery through sleep, gratitude, meditation, earthing, sunlight is my priority. That is of more performance. Like a lot of people will go, okay, I'm going to take this pre-workout, I'm going to have a load of caffeine, I'm going to get psyched up, listen to this music. That is not the way. That is just causing more stress, anxiety, adrenal fatigue, central nervous system fatigue, and then you're just feeling basically wired and tired. Now, I do stem cells. Stem cells really do help me. I've traveled overseas a couple of times for stem cells because I don't plan on slowing down anytime soon. I love what I do. I love being active. And having stem cells have really, really helped me. Now, of course, they're not always accessible to everybody. It can be invasive, it can be a little bit expensive, but we do have access to peptides as well as a preventative measure to what we were doing. Because like running on the road for 18 miles on a Saturday or going for a 100-mile bike ride on a Sunday isn't always the best for your optimal performance and your future. So I'm always thinking about the future. I don't want to have difficulties when I'm in my 90s, for example. So I do whatever I can to prevent the onset of the aging and the wear and tear for that future. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy, of course, if we're oxygenating our bodies, our brain, that's going to help. And then maintaining NAD and glutathione levels, especially as we get a little bit older. Of course, I'm 49 years old now, so I increase it a little bit year by year. Or as I feel that I'm overtraining, I've got more oxidative stress on those days, particularly if I'm traveling, then I'll bump it up a little bit more. And managing my blood glucose response. I'm sure a lot of people here use blood glucose monitors. It's great to wear them. I started wearing one in 2017 just to see where my blood glucose response was from. Of course, at certain times of the day, it's very good to have that response, but a lot of the time you want to baseline it as much as you can. And then I've put avoidance of Teflon here at the end because, again, athletes are always cooking. They're using the microwaves, they're using non-stick pans because it's easier and convenient. And of course, having that leaching into your system is going to be a health implication.